There have been some fighters who racked up so many wins in a row they almost felt invincible. So let's take a look at the top 10 fighters with the biggest win streaks in the UFC. The number 1 place is tied with 2 fighters, Islam and Anderson, both with 16 wins. Anderson's reign lasted 6 years from 2006 to 2012. He defended the middleweight title 10 times. Out of those 16 wins, 14 were finishes, 12 knockouts, and 2 submissions. He also had 2 unanimous decision victories. Silva went through his whole win streak undefeated in the UFC, and it ended when he lost the belt by knockout against Weidman in 2013. He fought at middleweight for most of his career, but occasionally went up to light heavyweight, 3 times to be more precise. And these fights weren't even for the title. It's crazy to think the UFC let their champions jump weight classes like that back in the day. This wouldn't happen today without a belt on the line, and for good reason. Islam took 10 years to build his 16-fight win streak, which started in 2016 and is still going until the release of this video. He defended the lightweight belt 4 times in the middle of his 16 wins, and conquered the belt in the welterweight division in 2025. He had 10 finishes, 3 being knockouts, and 7 submissions, as well as 6 decision wins. For a fighter with a wrestling background, to have that amount of submissions is really impressive. It speaks volumes to the depth of his game. Most wrestlers don't develop a strong submission game, and he is more successful than a lot of fighters with a jiu-jitsu background. Despite them having the finishing skills, a lot of them don't have the takedown skills to match. Even though they are tied, I believe Anderson has an advantage by having done it in less time, by having more title defenses, more finishes, and against arguably tougher opposition. When the overhyped thought of a fighter being invincible is brought up, I always remember Anderson. He did lose before the UFC, but his reign was so dominant that it almost felt like no one could beat him. Even in the jaws of defeat, he would pull out the victory. And when he finally lost, it almost didn't feel real. Even though Anderson takes the tie in my eyes, there is a very strong possibility that Islam beats this record in his very next fight, and possibly extends it much further since he is only 34 and in his prime. In 3rd place, we have Usman, with 15 wins. Since debuting in the UFC, he started the streak, won the belt in 2019, and defended it 5 times after losing both the title and the win streak in 2022 with a KO loss to Edwards. His victories took place in a 6-year period with 5 finishes, 4 knockouts, and 1 submission. The rest of the 10 wins came via unanimous decision, which speaks to his dominant wrestling style. Definitely a guy that took a while longer to get a title shot because of it. Interestingly enough, most of the fights that he finished were after he got the belt, with arguably much tougher competition than what he faced on his way to the title. A great example of a fighter that put it all together after reaching the pinnacle of the sport. The 4th place's win streak was recently broken. Merab had 14 consecutive wins, and was looking unstoppable, especially because of his insane cardio. But out of nowhere, he lost to Jan in their rematch, which was surprising since the first fight he won handily, and with the loss came the end of his streak. Since 2018, he had been dominating the bantamweight division after his 2 losses when he entered the UFC. In these 7 years, he defended the belt 3 times, all in 2025. Out of those 14 wins, he had only 2 finishes, 1 knockout and 1 submission. He also had 12 decisions. Granted, they were all unanimous, but his finishing rate has got to be one of the lowest of the UFC, for sure of the list, sitting at 14%. Keep in mind, that is regarding this win streak, not all of his fights. The number 5 spot is tied by an astounding amount of 5 fighters with 13 wins. Let's talk a little about each fighter and see if we can rank them based on some other accolades. St. Pierre started his streak in 2007 and ended with him winning the middleweight title in 2017 for a total of 13 wins, 1 weight class above the one he built his career in, which was welterweight. In this 10-year streak, he defended the belt 9 times and had 4 finishes, 2 knockouts and 2 submissions, with 9 decisions also. In these 13 fights, George avenged the only 2 losses of his career to Hughes and Serra. He He had already beat Hughes before, and this fight is his second win over him to finish off the trilogy. Against Serra, he redeemed himself after the first and only KO loss in his career. After this fight, George became much more cautious with his fighting style. The amount of decisions we see here are derived from that. George retired with his win streak intact at the age of 35. Jon Jones started his 13-fight win streak after a DQ loss for illegal elbows in 2010, and ended it in 2016 with a victory for the interim light heavyweight belt. This total 6-year streak saw 8 title defenses. He also had 8 finishes, 4 knockouts, and 4 submissions. Also, 5 decisions. The thing is that if it wasn't for the DQ loss, Jones's UFC win streak would have been 17 fights, giving him first place in this list. Most people consider the rule that caused the disqualification ridiculous, and the fact that he was dominating the fight just feels unfair that he doesn't hold this record. But it doesn't stop there, because what broke his streak was a no contest after initial win by knockout in a fight against Cormier. But the win was overturned after he tested positive for PEDs, which is a much more reasonable motive to take his win away. Now just imagine that if these 2 fights were considered wins, Jones would have a 24-fight win streak, dating from his debut in the UFC in 2008 until his alleged retirement in 2025, a 17-year run with 13 title defenses in 2 weight classes. Safe to say that it would be one of the hardest records to break, since the second place would need to win 9 more fights to beat it. Crazy to think about it. Demetrius Johnson had so much success in a short amount of time that it is hard to believe. 11 title defenses in 5 years. Only 2 of these 13 fights weren't title defenses. GSP was 2 defenses short of that in twice the amount of time. The guy really just went under the radar because he is small. After winning the belt in 2012, he had 7 finishes, 2 knockouts, and 5 submissions, as well as 6 decisions. His streak ended in 2017 with a split decision loss to Cejudo, followed by his release from the UFC. Khabib is the only undefeated fighter on this list. His 13 wins began when he entered the UFC in 2012, with no losses, and extended that streak until his retirement in 2020. In the meantime, he defended the lightweight belt 3 times, and had 7 finishes, 2 knockouts, and 5 submissions, as well as 6 decisions in 8 years fighting for the UFC. Many think he could have had much more success since he retired at only 31 years of age. But it's good to see a fighter call it on top without having taken nearly any damage, since Khabib has never even suffered as much as a knockdown. Max, in only 4 years, put this 13-fight win streak together, which began in 2014. After a 3-3 UFC record, he came into his own, won the featherweight title, defended it twice, and ended his streak in 2018 while going up in weight to challenge for the interim belt against Poirier. In these 13 fights, he had 10 finishes, 8 knockouts, and 2 submissions. Also 3 decisions. It was only after a 10-fight win streak that Max got his title shot in the featherweight division against Jose Aldo, whom he beat twice, back-to-back, in the exact same way. After losing to Dustin, he came back to featherweight and defended the belt once more. But since we are counting win streaks overall, and not in a certain division, his was only 13 instead of the 14 he had as a featherweight. So, let's rank them. I'm given precedence for the least amount of time those wins were conquered in, the number of title defenses, and the finishing rate. So, here is the order. Demetrius is at the top spot. Despite not being the best finisher, he did it in the least amount of time and has the most title defenses with 11. Next up is Jones, followed by St. Pierre. They have the same number of title defenses with 9, but Jones did it in 6 years while George did it in 10, and Jones's finishing rate doubled St. Pierre's. We finish it off with Holloway, followed by Khabib with 2 defenses each. But since Holloway did in half the time Khabib did and finished more opponents, he stays in front. I know that Khabib's level of dominance was something special to witness, but here the numbers are taking precedence, and Max's stats in this case are better. In 10th place, we have a 3-way tie between 3 fighters with 12 wins. All of them did it in 6 years, but Amanda is ahead with 7 title defenses against 4 of Volk's and 0 of Tony's. Naturally, Volk is right behind her, and Tony is in last place, even though his finishing rate is the best out of the 3. Amanda's 12-fight streak started in 2015 and ended in 2021, in a fight that many believe she only lost because she lost her composure trying too hard to finish. She won the immediate rematch and retired after the next fight. During this win streak, she won belts in 2 weight classes. The bantamweight belt she defended 5 times, and the featherweight belt 2 times. In these 12 wins, she had 5 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 4 decisions in her 6-year run. Her knockout win ratio is crazy, especially since that is a very difficult stat to achieve in women's MMA. She is the only woman to ever knock out Chris Cyborg throughout every facet of combat sports. Volk started his win streak of 12 wins in 2016 on his UFC debut and lasted for 7 years, ending it in 2023 after defending the featherweight title 4 times when he went up to lightweight to fight for the belt and lost a unanimous decision to Islam, a fight many thought he won. He is the only fighter in this list with 0 submission wins in his win streak, and actually till this day in the UFC. However, he does have 4 knockouts and 8 decisions in those 12 wins. Tony is the only fighter in this list of biggest UFC win streaks to never win or even fight for the undisputed belt. His 12 win streak started after his first UFC loss to Michael Johnson in 2013. He did win the interim belt in 2017, but got stripped of it after an injury. In those 12 wins, he had 6 submissions and 3 knockouts, only 3 decisions. The fight that broke his 6-year win streak was a beating against Justin, which would kick off an 8-fight losing streak until he was cut by the UFC in 2024. Let's take a look at the overall list and talk about some stats. Islam is the only fighter with an active win streak. All the other fighters' streaks were broken, except for 2 who retired on top, GSP and Khabib. Anderson, to no one's surprise, was the fighter with the most KO wins, 12 total. Islam holds the record for the submissions with 7, and Merab has the most decisions with 12, by far the most unimpressive stat on the list. The shorter win streak belongs to Max, who had 13 victories in 4 years. The longest was 10 years by St. Pierre and Islam, with 13 and 16 wins respectively. Islam could extend not only the number of years his streak lasts, but also the amount of wins he has, since he is the only active win streak. Demetrius holds the record for the most title defenses with 11. Tony, on the other hand, has the record for the least with 0. 7 fighters are either retired or have been let go by the UFC, and 5 fighters out of the 12 are still active. Thanks for watching. Let me know what kind of stats you would like to see me do a video about in the comments. And until next time.